time to armor up and level out. Listen up and hear what we're about.
Welcome back to Arm Radio. Josh here with Dusty.
Hey man, here we are again.
Here we are again. Welcome, as always.
Yeah man, good to be
Iron sharpens iron.
Yep.
Tell me about that.
It's our small business group that gets together last Friday of each month. And we are coming up on, I think, you've been doing it close to a year. Is that right? Yeah. So it's been going on consistently each month for almost the last year.
Okay.
Man, the vision behind it was really just to create a place where people from within the armor community could come together and bounce ideas off of each other, whether that be successes or challenges that they're maybe facing in entrepreneurship, and really just see if we could all come together and help to maybe answer some of the questions and come up with solutions. And it's been pretty interesting to see some of the topics that we have discussed, some of the speakers that we've had come in, and really just to hear the challenges that some of the small business owners are facing. Once you start to hear them, everybody starts to understand that, oh, I'm not that different. Like, we're all facing a lot of the same, type challenges. And I think that was another one of my goals too, was to make people that maybe feel like they're isolated and like, man, I'm just in this industry that is just tougher, But then when you start to hear people from other industries talking through their challenges, you realize, I guess it's not that much different.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Is that only for entrepreneurs?
No, it's not. It's not even really only for people that are members at Armor Gym. I think originally when we started out, that was kind of the thought behind it, but as time has went on, we've had people from outside the Armor community come in, and it's been good for them because it's given them an opportunity to maybe come into the facility, see the facility, meet people, and then some of them have even started training here, so that's worked out well.
It's not only for gym folk, it's not only for fitness enthusiasts, it's not only for entrepreneurs, it's anybody looking for the improvement in like a business arena.
Yeah, I would say anybody that, like, if you consider yourself a professional who is out, whether that be in sales or entrepreneurship or any type of career where the success is really riding on your ability to perform, which in a lot of cases is most jobs. I think there's something you can take away from it.
If nothing else, to get with like-minded individuals that want to improve and be able to talk shop, brainstorm.
Agree. And it's just it's a place where it's like welcomed, to like, hey, throw your problems out, and or tell us what you've done in this situation. And it's been really cool to hear the dialogue.
Is that common as an entrepreneur to have a lot of, I guess, to hold it all in and to not really have anybody to talk to, or does nobody just really understand what you're going through unless they've done certain things like that?
I think yes. I think you definitely feel that way, and it is hard to have conversations with people who they may have sympathy for, like maybe the challenges that you face, but they don't completely understand the level of difficulty, of the challenges that you're facing. So to get around people who have maybe walked in those shoes or currently, sit in that position, it definitely, I think, provides a different perspective and feedback. And like I say, again, just dialogue. It's not necessarily about people coming in and promoting what they're doing. It's more for them to really just to try to learn and become better at what they do.
Now, how long? So, tell me a little bit about your journey with becoming an entrepreneur, and then how you've made it to where we are today.
Yeah. Well, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've actually never had a job.
Okay.
So I didn't know that I was an entrepreneur, especially as a young person in college and in high school. Didn't really know what exactly I wanted to do, but I just happened to kind of fall into a position where my father-in-law, who was a very successful entrepreneur, just kind of took me under his wing and started showing me the ropes, allowed me to just kind of jump into his business and allowed me just to like make decisions and make mistakes.
First business you got to be
he had a chain of mattress stores.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
and so I got in and really learned, just how the business functioned and how to really just manage the team members and marketing. And so there was a lot of different aspects of the business that he allowed me to just hop in and kind of get my feet wet. And then from there, as time went on, I started to take some of those skills and really try to, figure out what do I want to do? What do I want to do with this? And so that went down a few different paths, but I think all alone I wanted to do a gym, but me and Courtney, we had a health food store at one point that we started online, then moved it into a storefront, and then after about 6 or 7 years, we sold it. So that was fun. And again, you learn, I think each time I learned, something. So I learned a lot of unique skills with my father-in-law.
Do those lessons come at like a price? Like, are those usually you learn them through fire?
Yeah, well, I think for me personally, that's how I learn.
Okay.
That's his style of management over me. I think it really fit my personality. I would not have known that going in.
Yeah.
But him just really giving me the reins and saying, hey, go do this.
Yeah.
And just kind of giving me some rough, parameters and guardrails, that really worked well for me. I took ownership of it, and really I took the responsibility as really like a gift that he was showing that he believed in me.
Yeah.
And because he believed in me, it made me believe in myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know that if I could do it.
Yeah.
And
so
so
that's a good test. Like, if somebody's hearing this and they're like, "Oh, that scares me to death to have to do it that way," like, "Oh, maybe being an entrepreneur isn't really for you," or should it spark an interest in that aspect that you really just have, like you said, like, there's the lane, man, but you can be all over that lane. You really got to figure it out.
To me, that's what entrepreneurship is. It is. It's having a vision. It's having a dream. And you need to understand what it is that you're doing, but you can't be so hung up on all the details, because a lot of those details, I think, end up being the roadblocks that keep people from doing whatever it is, that they think they want to do.
That's one of the things I thought was most impressive about what you did was really just being able to lead, but not micromanage.
Yeah.
And I think that's very rare. Is that something that you just had, or is that something that you had to develop?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I had it, because I think the way that the way that at least my understanding of management and how to run and operate a business was you had to have your thumb on every aspect of the business, and if you didn't, that you were going to get taken advantage of, or people weren't going to do it the way that you would do it. There's all these things that you hear. And so I think early on, I did try to control, everything, but there just becomes a point. I think especially if it's something that if it's a real passion, like fitness is for me. If you see yourself in something for a long, long time, you're gonna have to figure out a way to do it that has some longevity to it. Because I just don't feel like that type of style of being on top of every single thing and trying to do every single thing is sustainable.
Yeah.
At least for me, I can't do all the things all the time.
That one statement, though, I think a lot of entrepreneurs probably should say that, and they don't.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of them get into trouble. If I'm somebody that's listening to this podcast or watching right now, and I'm stuck with that, I feel like everybody's going to take advantage of me if I take a vacation, if I take a step away. What would you recommend as the first step to start detaching themselves and actually not working within the business, but running the business?
Well, I think you don't have to. I don't think you have to look at every single scenario and try to get it done exactly the way that you would do it. You know, I think you have to look at what is the outcome that you ultimately want.
Yeah.
And is there more than one way, you know, to get to that outcome?
Yeah.
And so I think when you start to understand that, hey, this is where we want to go, but there's probably like 2 or 3 different ways that we could get there, then ultimately what matters is that we get to where we want to go, that this job gets done in the way that we want it to get done. Might not be exactly how I would do it, but you know, I think you kind of work in reverse. You know, it's like, all right, what is the desired outcome, and then let me backfill, you know, the different ways. Here's how I would do it. What are you thinking? You know, or how do you see it going? And most of the time, what I started to realize was, you know, people brought up very different things than what I was thinking. You know, and it, and maybe when I first heard it, I would be like, well, you know, and I don't know if we should go that route. But when I just removed myself and allowed them to do it, you know, in the way that made sense to them, and it still produced the same outcome that I was looking for, then what was I really like? What was I trying to achieve, you know? And I think it just came down to control, you know.
Is that an ego thing? Like, is it like stepping off the ego a little bit, like letting other people
I think
be
it
successful?
is. And just thinking that, like, because you're the owner, it has to be your idea, you know, or it has to be your way. You have to be the one that, you know, makes the final decision or whatever. And I mean, I think there's times when that's definitely needed, but overall, what I've learned is when you allow people to do those things, then it's kind of like what happened to me, where they feel more invested, they feel more heard, and they feel like what they're doing and how they're doing it, it's valued, you know, that they're not just, well, you can get anybody to do this, you know. I don't ever want anybody, you know, I try not to have anybody feel that way, that they're just easily replaceable. And I'm not somebody that's real big on even job descriptions, because I just don't like forcing somebody into maybe a role or position that it is maybe meeting what I want, but it's not necessarily who they are, you know. And so, again, I kind of go to, what am I wanting? What do I need done? What needs to be accomplished here? And then let that person kind of map it out in the way that, you know, best fits who they are and their strengths. And
to start with the end goal of what we're trying to get to, then we find the people, and then we let the job descriptions happen through working towards the goal.
Yes, prime example is Jeremiah, just because he's in here and it like pops right up to me. When I came to Armor, Jeremiah was opener and did a great job. But as time went on, you know, we started to really just try to lean in to find different strengths that some of the team members have. Well, we find out that he had a passion for like marketing and videography and all these things. And so now here we are a couple years later, here he is videoing the podcast and doing all these videos. And there's been things, even like the, what are those music videos that we're doing? Reacts. So in a million years, I would have never like dreamed that up and said, let's do this. This could, now we're selling all these t-shirts online, you know, because of these videos. And so there's all these things that's opened up as a result of him kind of pursuing some of his passions, just basically through, you know, this gym.
But that's your willingness to be able to take a step back, and then your confidence in your crew, to be able to let them do what they want to do, what they're good at. Okay. When you meet and iron sharpens iron, do you find that other entrepreneurs, maybe specifically more new entrepreneurs, are struggling with that ability to have the confidence to let their team do stuff?
Yeah, because, and that's another common one that we see within the group, and it's one that really excites me is, you know, because the group is very diverse, but I would say it's probably on the 60-70% side is like a year or less, right? So we have a lot of young entrepreneurs, not necessarily in age, but in their business.
Right.
And
is that because that most businesses don't? What's the statistic? Like most don't make it. 70% fail within the first 5 years.
yeah, and I think it's something like 80 or 90% within like 10 years. I mean, it's like as time goes on, it's just more and more.
Is that do you find one or two or three common complaints or struggles when you're in the meeting? Is everybody like, yes, we all this?
Well, I think everybody burns out.
Okay.
And again, I think it goes back to the trying to do it all, And I get it. In the early stages of your business, like I did it, you did it, you can't afford to bring on all these different resources.
Right.
So you do have to wear all the hats.
Yep.
But there has to be a time on that. Like you're going to do it for 6 months or the first year or whatever. Because if you just stay in that mindset and that routine, you're actually holding the business back and yourself back, because you're not giving up some of that control and responsibility to allow some people to come in, and maybe they do make some mistakes. I definitely have made massive mistakes over the years and brought in folks that it didn't necessarily work out in the way that I had hoped for. But that was, again, part of the process, because I think every time I learned one thing. I learned, something about the type of person that I was looking for. And that person helped show me who I didn't, want in that role. So I think it's just, in the beginning, it's all about surviving. And I get it. You have to make sure that you're viable, in the beginning. But there needs to be a plan of when are you going to move away from survival mode and start to really try to, to grow your business in a way that at least gives you some ability to back up a little bit, and
so if I'm not but thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, or maybe I'm early on in my career, you're talking about burning out. Are there certain measures or metrics that I need to set beforehand where I'm like, man, by this date, this really needs to happen? Or is it a conversation that I need to have with myself, where I need to be like, I know that I'm not going to be able to be hard charging for 18 months doing all the things. I know that I have to make these things by 6 months, or I need this by 3 months. At looking back, would you have been better about creating those pillars along the way? Or is it something that you just need to know about yourself?
Yeah, I think it does have a lot to do with your personality, and you know how you're wired a lot better than anybody else.
So some people, 2 years will just head down,
and they can do it.
They're fine.
Yeah, they can do it, and I think it some of that is industry based, depending on what you're doing. If you're in a very like service oriented business where there's a lot of like emotional support, that is so taxing. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have somewhere that you're getting a reprieve yourself, that window is probably half as long as you think it is. So if you think it's a year, you're probably really dealing more with like 6 months.
Because you can't be always filling up others.
You can't. I mean, there's got to be somewhere where who's refilling you, and where is that coming from? And so
that's the thing you and I talk about all the time. Coaches need coaches.
They do.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that you have somebody speaking, back into you, who's not necessarily there to get what it is you have, or to find out information from you, but is there to really just support you, hear you. And that's, again, what the group is it's a place where these folks can come and you can get the support. Like I said, nobody's there really. There's no agenda. It's not like you're trying to sell or promote or anything. It's really just, hey, come, let's hear what you guys are struggling with, and it's been really, really interesting to hear the people in the group speak up, because like I said, it's about 60% 1 year and below, but then we've got a couple owners who are 10 to 15 years. We have one that's over 30 years. So then you get to hear some like really insightful information from some people that have been in the game a long time, and that I think to me has yielded like the most fruit from the group is it's allowing these young entrepreneurs a place to or giving them a space to come in and talk it through, and then having those people around them that can say, hey, I've been there, this is something that we did, or this is how we approached it. And we brought in an attorney who was really like versed in taxes and business acquisitions, and then we ended up bringing in another small business owner who had just recently sold his business. So he kind of talked through the process of selling, which was good because, again, if you're in the early stages of opening your business, you're still trying to
get into that at all.
Not at all. It's not even on the radar because you're just trying to like get to that point where you're making the money that you would like to be making. So that helped to even lay some groundwork for long term of some things that you might want to get into order, because eventually it's like, what are you going to do?
So Iron Sharpens Iron isn't just a gathering of business owners that just chat. You also have like an education component where you're having people come in and they're talking about, here's how I did it.
Yeah, and that's one thing we always try to end each meeting with, just a Q&A, and then if there's certain topics that people, one is employment management. I think that one was one, employee management. That one came up like 2 or 3 times in a row.
Okay.
And so then we had somebody speak in on, just how to retain employees and just some things that they had done. So it's really, if there's a topic that seems to be widely discussed, then we try to bring in what we would consider an expert or somebody that is very versed in the field to speak. I'll kind of go ahead and plug this month's actually, April, which is, I think it's the 29th, last Friday of this month. We got Colleen Cruz coming in from Cruz Dairy Farm.
Yeah.
So that one is one I'm really excited about, just because
Fantastic marketing.
Fantastic marketing. And the culture that she's
100%,
built within the brand, and her dad started the business, and
really good crew, good people.
they are.
Yeah.
They're really great people, and it's just been cool because we've personally got to know them because they train at our other facility and have been there several years. But just their journey and how they've expanded and watching that happen, I'm excited to bring her in and let her chat with the group.
And I know a lot of the folks you've brought in, and that's a really interesting thing that they're really good people. I know that sounds really strange, but I feel like there's something to that. Like they get to make money, but they also get to be good people. Like you can do both of those.
You can, and I think that was the other kind of reason for doing starting the group was, you're out there in the gym on a daily, weekly basis, and you see these folks and you see them putting in work, but you really don't know who they are or what they do. And it's like it was a really cool way for people to connect the dots. It's like, hey, I've seen you around the gym. I had no idea that that you had done all these things, or that you have this type of business. And so it's been cool to see some of the friendships that have kind of culminated from the group of people that they knew, they could recognize a face, but now you just kind of given a spot where they could take a moment, take an hour, and just kind of connect. And the thing is, when we started it, we were going to do it once a quarter, right? Mm-hmm. We had one meeting and everybody was like, oh, we got to do this more. You got to do it more. And so then we went to once a month, and now it's like they would go, I think, weekly if we could pull it off. But we've always got about 30 folks or so that show up, so it's just it's a solid group.
So this morning we were out on the floor coaching athletes.
Yep.
Then I saw you take a detour, start working out. One thing to the next, just hit one thing to the next right out of the gate.
Yep.
And then now we're doing this.
Yep.
We're talking about entrepreneurs, and they don't have to be fitness folks to be there. But it seems like, do you feel like fitness does
Unites.
something. Yeah, maybe unites, or does it? I can imagine. I can't imagine being an entrepreneur and not working out. Like, what do I do with the way that I felt sometimes, or the way that the stress that accumulates?
I think that's the number one right there,
Okay.
because that's another thing that I think is probably goes unnoticed is like sometimes the amount of depression that small business owners are dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't, again, have that place, if there, for me, a lot of times fitness is like, that's my hour, you
Yeah.
know? And
I see you protect that. You do a
I
great
do.
job of it,
And
and I marvel at it. I love it. I love seeing it. That you get done with the athletes. You make sure you get your fitness in, and then it's the next thing.
yeah, it
I
is.
feel like with entrepreneurs, again, we found a lot of fitness-minded entrepreneurs, but I also feel like a lot are like, oh, I don't have time for that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, like, you have to have non-negotiables, you know? There's certain things that no matter what, I'm getting this done. And so, for me, I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to train. I'm going to carry out the responsibilities that I have within the business.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be with my family, you know,
Yeah.
on the daily. Those are like my 5 things that I'm like, no matter what. And if I've got time for a meeting, then I can work it in. If I don't, it goes to the next day, or the next week. I think that's another thing, is that sometimes it's easy to get in that mindset that you have to. If you don't prioritize the business being number one, then you're not going to be able to feed your family or whatever. You can come up with a million different things in your head, but the reality is like, you have to set some boundaries, because that business, it will literally suck the life out of you if you let
Any
it.
business.
Yes.
Any business.
It doesn't
And I love
matter
the way
what
you
you're
said
doing.
that. Like you said, I'm gonna. Like, there was no pause. There was no.
There's no what ifs,
hesitation.
because if you crack that door, guess what? It's coming.
Yeah.
Because it could easily. I mean, if I just went off of like what I have available to work out, I might work out like 2 or 3 times a week.
Yeah.
But I work out 5 or 6 times a week because I prioritize
Yeah.
my training.
Yeah, and I love how you called it your non-negotiables. So you have those set,
Yeah.
and you don't let anybody or anything get in the way of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a critical component that I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't set up, and specifically because you said maybe they feel guilty.
I think it is guilt,
Yeah.
and then you feel like that if you do something that doesn't revolve around the business, then it's going to be your fault if it doesn't. If the business, if it's a bad month, or if you're struggling or whatever. The thing is you have to embrace the fact that there are going to be highs and there's going to be lows. It's going to be good. It's going to be bad, and it's going to ebb and flow. And that's one thing I think that maybe is underestimated. Don't be naive in thinking that your business is just going to constantly, do this. It's going to level. It may even dip. And guess what? You may be still doing exactly the same things that you were doing when it was climbing. But
What
that's
do you
just
do
part
in that
of it.
situation? What do you do? Do you push? Do you take a step back and you try to survey the landscape? Like, what's the thing that
Well, I
you
think
do?
you always try to step back and identify maybe what factors could be contributing to that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you might have to be okay with just that. It doesn't make sense. Like, you don't understand it. Like,
Why did this work yesterday but it doesn't work today?
right.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean you completely abandon, what you're doing that works.
Yeah.
It may mean that you have to tweak it a little bit. And
Okay.
I think that's the other thing, is not being so, you have to believe in what you're doing, but don't be so headstrong in it that you're not willing to pivot and make a change if that's what's needed. Or just reassess, hey, this is the direction that I thought we needed to go, but after, seeing the first quarter or whatever,
Yeah.
that I think we need to maybe go this direction a little bit more, or we need to, do this differently. So I think it's always this evolving, process and journey that you're on, and each year you learn things, and the really good things you hold on to those, and those are the ones that are repeated, and then there's this handful of other things that you're like, well, that didn't go so well, or that didn't go as planned, and maybe you know why, maybe you don't, and so those are the things that you're working to tweak, know.
Yeah. Do you think that entrepreneurs fall within that sort of, they keep pushing because they're on an island, like it's just them, they're alone, they're in just their business.
Sometimes they don't know what else to do.
Or are they just paying attention to their own environment and not actually going outside of what they do on a day-to-day basis? And that's where, what you're talking about with Iron Sharpens Iron, you got 30 people, just that alone, I feel like is a big benefit to be able to come out of what you do. I
agree. I think isolation is the worst thing that you can do, especially if you're in a kind of a rough patch where you're kind of struggling in maybe questioning why you're even doing what it is that you're doing. I think you really, maybe you need to get around, some other folks that can just reignite, the fire, and really probably more just speak some truth into you that, hey, you're right where you should be, in this process. And so sometimes you might need to just be encouraged. I would say, don't isolate off thinking, again, that you're the only one that's, going through this scenario, or you're the only one that just seems like you can't hire the right people, Maybe it's that you're just trying to get the people to do the wrong thing, And so I think just taking a step back and really trying to find out what it is that people are passionate about, on your team. What are some strengths? Because again, I don't think had we asked Jeremiah that he would necessarily have walked up to me and said, hey, just so you know, I know how to shoot videos. So it's kind of open the door sometimes, allow, folks to walk in and really just tell you, hey, I actually, did this in college, or I mess around with this on the, on the side. I mean, it's like you in here on this podcast, I would never do this. If you weren't in here like facilitating it, So again, and I don't know that you even, you're pretty talented, so you probably did, but you're really good at it, just in the facilitation of it. And but I always just want to open the door, like, man, just go for it, and so I think that's.
But being an entrepreneur, I feel like that is so unbelievably hard to do, and just hearing somebody say it is a big deal.
Yeah, and I think I'll close it by this, man. You always say I'm good at closing.
You are.
I would say like what most of us entrepreneurs need to do is, I messed this mic all the way up. I'll hold it to finish it. Is you got to get out of your own way, and I think that's where a lot of times we think, that we're the one that had the vision. We had we set the path and knew where this thing, or where we wanted it to go, and we don't think anybody else gets that, But the fact of the matter is you probably, I'd almost guarantee you that if you've been in business for any length of time, and you've got people who've been with you for any length of time, they're still there because they understand, or they get what it is that you're trying to do. Yes, people need to make money. Yes, people want opportunities, but all of us, I think, are wanting to be a part of something that's, bigger than what we can do, on our own. And so sometimes you just got to get out of your own way.
Dusty, thank you for your time.
Yeah, man. Thank you.